All right, today we're tackling one of the biggest questions in energy. What's next for nuclear? We're going to explore two really different paths that could lead to a future with reliable, clean power.
So, let's just get right to it. We all love renewables. Solar and wind are fantastic. But they've got that one big catch. They're not always on. So what do we do to fill the gaps? That is the billion-dollar question if we're serious about a zero-carbon grid that actually works. And the answer really comes down to this idea of baseload power. Think of it as the constant, steady heartbeat of our electric grid. It's the power that has to be there 24/7 for our hospitals, our data centers, basically for modern life to function. And this is exactly where nuclear energy is making a comeback into the conversation.
So let's look at the first path, and this is the big one, the ambitious long-term dream of nuclear fusion. Yeah, we're talking about the very same process that powers the sun and the stars, and scientists are trying to bottle it up right here on Earth.
Now you might be wondering, what's the difference? Well, fission, that's what powers all of today's nuclear plants, is like taking a heavy bowling ball and splitting it into smaller pieces. But fusion, it's the complete opposite. It's like taking two tiny marbles and smashing them together so hard they fuse into one, and in that process, they release an incredible amount of energy.
So how does that even work? Well, you start with special forms of hydrogen, called deuterium and tritium, and you heat them up until they become this super hot state of matter called a plasma. Then you use immense pressure and heat to force the atoms to fuse together, releasing all that clean energy.
And when I say immense, I really mean it. To get fusion to work here on Earth, you need temperatures over 100 million degrees Celsius. Let that sink in for a second. That is literally hotter than the core of the sun. It's, without a doubt, one of the greatest scientific challenges we've ever attempted.
Yeah, it's so hard that there's been this running joke in the physics community for decades. People always say that commercial fusion power is always 30 years away. It's kind of funny, but it's also a pretty good reminder of just how tough this journey has been. But here's the thing, that old joke might finally be getting, well, old. We are seeing real, tangible breakthroughs right now. The hope is that we'll see the first pilot plants actually generating more power than they consume sometime in the 2030s. From there, maybe some early commercial reactors in the 2040s, but widespread use on the grid, we're still looking at 2050 or beyond. And that's if everything goes perfectly.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about our second path. This one is much, much closer to reality. It's about evolving the technology we already have with advanced fission reactors. Seriously, this is not your grandfather's nuclear power.
And this table really lays it out perfectly. We're moving away from those enormous, custom-built plants that take a decade to build. Instead, the focus is on what are called small modular reactors, or SMRs. The big idea here is to stop treating nuclear plants like construction projects and start treating them like a manufactured product. You build the components in a factory, ship them to the site, and assemble them way faster. And the safety is a game changer, moving from complex active systems that need power and pumps to passive systems that use things like gravity to shut down safely on their own.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it's a huge deal, because this approach tackles the classic problems of old-school nuclear head-on. The financial risk is way lower. They're faster to build. You can put them in more places, maybe even replacing old coal plants. And those walk-away safe designs, they fundamentally change the safety equation because they're designed to cool down automatically without needing any human intervention. And hey, this isn't just a concept on a PowerPoint slide. You've got real companies like Rolls-Royce in the UK and NuScale here in the US that are already deep in the process of developing and getting these SMRs licensed. The goal is to have the first ones up and running by the end of this decade.
But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. Let's pump the brakes for a second and get a hard reality check, because both fusion and this next-gen fission face some massive hurdles before they can become mainstream.
The first big question is always the money. I mean, the very first reactors of any new design are always incredibly expensive, and they have to find a way to compete cost-wise with solar and wind, which just keep getting cheaper and cheaper.
Then you've got the regulatory maze. The rules we have in place were written for those giant old-school reactors from 50 years ago. Trying to get these brand new, smaller, modular designs through that slow, bureaucratic process, it could take forever.
And finally, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, public trust. Disasters like Chernobyl and Fukushima, even though they happened long ago with much older technology, still cast a really long shadow.
Getting a community to say yes to any new nuclear project is a huge challenge all by itself. So, let's say we can figure all that out. The cost, the regulations, the public support. Where do these new nuclear technologies actually fit in a grid that's being taken over by renewables? Are they friends or are they foes in the race to decarbonize?
Well, it's this fascinating mix of both synergy and competition. On one hand, nuclear provides that 24/7 reliability and grid stability that renewables just can't. But at the same time, it's competing for the same investment dollars as solar and wind, which are, let's face it, cheaper, faster, and way more popular with the public.
And if you want to see nuclear's biggest superpower in one simple chart, this is it. It's something called capacity factor, which basically measures how often a power plant is actually running. And look at that. Nuclear is an absolute workhorse, running at over 90% of the time. Compare that to solar at around 25% or wind at 35 to 45%. It's just the definition of reliable.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway here. The future of energy isn't about picking one single winner. It's about building a clean energy team, a whole portfolio of different technologies that work together to give us a grid that's resilient, reliable, and completely carbon-free.
So, we're left with this final massive question. Is our energy future going to be defined by the long-term, incredible dream of fusion, harnessing the power of a star? Or will it be the more practical, near-term evolution of fission, with these smaller, safer reactors that gets us where we need to go? The race is on, and the answer is going to shape our world for generations.